The billionaire's son had only 48 hours left until a silent cleaner saved his life. Have you ever known something that could save a life, but nobody would listen? That question haunted Ethan Walsh on a rain-soaked October night when an ambulance tore through the city like a blade through silk, sirens swallowing the air whole. Inside the Ashford estate, beneath crystal chandeliers worth more than most people's retirement, a 14-year-old boy lay unconscious. His lips had gone the color of winter fog. His skin, usually warm with the flush of adolescence, was pale as marble. Julian Ashford stood at the window, jaw clenched so tight his temples throbbed. He was a man who built towers that scraped the clouds, who reshaped city skylines with a single signature. He faced down hostile takeovers, corporate espionage, boardroom coups. He'd never flinched. But now, watching his son Leo's chest rise and fall in shallow, uncertain rhythms, Julian felt something he hadn't felt in years, absolute consuming terror. 48 hours, the doctor had said. Maybe less. Leo's symptoms made no sense. Crushing headaches that spiked every night. Confusion that came and went like tides. A heart rhythm that danced between normal and chaos like a drunk at a party. Blue-tinged lips that had absolutely no business being blue. Every test came back clean. Every scan showed nothing. Every specialist who flew in on private jets shook their heads and murmured the same useless words. Idiopathic, unexplained. We're doing everything we can. Everything we can meant nothing. Leo was slipping away, and Julian could do nothing but watch. Across the city, at Mercy General Hospital, Leo Hart was finishing his overnight shift. The name had been his mother's choice, Leo, after her favorite uncle who died too young. At 26, Leo had never quite grown into the name's lion-like connotations. He was quiet, invisible, the kind of person who moved through rooms like smoke, there and not there, noticed only when someone needed something. He pushed his cleaning cart through the West Wing corridor, the wheels squeaking in familiar rhythms. The night shift was his refuge. Fewer people. Less noise. Just him and the floors and the quiet hum of fluorescent lights that never quite turned off. His hands were raw from sanitizer, his shoulders ached from bending, and his back had started complaining years before it should have. But the work was honest. It paid the bills. And after everything, after his father's death, after dropping out of community college, after the slow unraveling of every plan he'd ever made, it was enough. It had to be enough. He was wiping down the break room counter when the radio crackled to life. The late-night news anchor's voice cut through the static, crisp, and professional. Mysterious illness strikes Ashford Air at Thompson Memorial. Doctors baffled. Sources say the 14-year-old is in critical condition, with symptoms including confusion, severe headaches, and blue discoloration of the lips. Leo's hands went cold. The cloth slipped from his fingers, landing in the sink with a wet slap. Blue lips. Confusion. Headaches. He'd heard those exact words before. 5 years ago. A cramped apartment in the bad part of town. A faulty space heater, humming through the night like a dying animal. His father, Michael, 52 years old and already worn thin by life, complaining of headache, saying he felt confused, dizzy. Leo, only 21, telling him to rest. Telling him it was probably just the flu. Telling him everything would be fine. Michael had died in his sleep. The coroner's report had been clinical, detached, carbon monoxide poisoning. Faulty heater. Accidental. Leo had been in the next room. He'd slept through it. Woken to silence and a body gone cold, and the terrible knowledge that he'd heard his father's complaints and done nothing. Nothing but offer useless reassurances. He stared at his reflection in the break room window. Pale, tired eyes, dark circles etched deep, a face that had forgotten how to smile. His worn scrubs hung loose on a frame that had lost weight he couldn't afford to lose. Nobody important. That's what he was. Nobody. A janitor who'd failed his father and spent every day since trying to forget it. But he knew something. Something the powerful, the wealthy, the doctors with their degrees and their state-of-the-art equipment couldn't see. And this time he wouldn't stay silent. Leo clocked out early. His supervisor, a heavy-set woman named Margaret who'd seen everything and judged nothing, barely looked up from her paperwork. "You look like hell, kid. Family emergency." She waved him off. "Go. Take tomorrow too if you need it." He didn't tell her he had no family left. That the emergency belonged to someone else entirely. That he was about to walk into a fortress of privilege and demand to be heard. The bus ride across town took 40 minutes. Leo spent them gripping the seat in front of him, heart hammering with every block. Rain streaked the windows, blurring the city lights into smears of gold and red. He replayed the news anchor's words over and over. Blue lips. Confusion. Headaches. The symptoms were identical. He'd studied environmental engineering before his father died. 2 semesters of it before grief and tuition bills had forced him to drop out. But he remembered. He remembered everything. Carbon monoxide poisoning was called the silent killer for a reason. It bound to hemoglobin more readily than oxygen. It fooled the body into thinking it was getting what it needed while slowly suffocating from the inside. Pulse oximeters couldn't detect it. Standard blood tests didn't look for it. You had to know what to ask for. Thompson Memorial gleamed like a fortress against the night sky. Marble and glass and carefully curated landscaping. This was where the wealthy came to be cared for, where money bought not just treatment but comfort, privacy, the illusion of control. Leo approached the main entrance, his cheap sneakers squeaking on the polished floors. The reception area was cavernous, all soft lighting and elegant furniture. A woman sat behind the desk, immaculate, composed, the kind of professional who'd been trained to smile while keeping everyone at arm's length. "Can I help you?" Her voice was pleasant but precise, warm but watchful. Leo swallowed. His voice came out smaller than he'd intended. "The boy. Leo Ashford. I think I know what's wrong with him." The woman's eyes swept over him. Mercy, general scrubs. Chapped hands. The faint smell of disinfectant that clung to his skin. She didn't need to say what she was thinking. Her face said it all. "Are you on staff here?" "No. I work at Mercy, General." "Night shift. Cleaning." The words tasted bitter. "But I studied environmental engineering before I had to stop. And Ma'am, this is a private facility. We have the best physicians in the state." "I know. I know you do. But please." Leo pulled a crumpled note from his pocket. His handwriting shook across the page. "Just give this to someone. Tell them to check carboxyhemoglobin levels. Tell them to inspect the ventilation system for the indoor pool. It could be blocked. It happened to my father." The symptoms are exactly the same. The receptionist took the note between 2 fingers, holding it like it carried disease. "I'll see what I can do." Leo watched through the glass as she set the note aside, as she turned back to her computer. As a moment later, he saw her pick it up and drop it into the trash can beneath her desk. Gone. Just like that. Security approached, a tall man with kind eyes but firm posture. "Miss Sir, you're not authorized in this facility. I need you to leave, please." Leo's voice cracked. "Just 5 minutes. I know what's killing him. This is a private hospital. I'm sorry, but you can't just walk in from another facility and..." "I'm not from another facility. I'm just someone who knows." Leo's throat tightened. "Please. He's going to die. He has 48 hours. He is less than that if they don't. Sir, I need you to leave now, or I'll have to call the authorities." The rain soaked through Leo's thin scrubs as he sat on a bench across the street. He watched the hospital like a lighthouse he couldn't reach. Lights blazed in the windows. Ambulances came and went. Somewhere inside, a 14-year-old boy was dying, and nobody would listen because the person telling them the truth wore cheap shoes. His phone buzzed. A text from Margaret. "Where are you? West Wing needs coverage." Leo typed back with shaking fingers. "Family emergency. Need personal time." The lie tasted bitter. He thought of his father. How he'd known something was wrong. How he trusted the adults who said it was just the flu, just a headache, just nothing to worry about. How he'd woken to silence and a body gone cold, and spent the rest of his life wondering what would have happened if he'd screamed louder, fought harder, refused to accept reassurance. Never again. 2 hours later, Leo returned. This time he found the service corridor. Every hospital had one, the back entrance where staff came and went, where deliveries were made, where the people who kept things running moved with quiet efficiency. The doors were always the same. The security was always a little looser. He slipped inside, his Mercy General badge clipped to his scrubs. Nobody looked twice. He was invisible, exactly where he belonged, moving through the labyrinthine hallways with the blank neutrality of someone who belonged everywhere and nowhere. The ICU prep area was quieter than he'd expected. Through the window, he could see the room, machines beeping, tubes snaking, a small figure on the bed surrounded by the cold architecture of modern medicine. And then the boy's eyes opened. Weak, unfocused, but awake. Leo pressed his palm to the glass. Their eyes met through the barrier, and something passed between them. Recognition, maybe, or just the desperate loneliness of someone who knew they were dying and couldn't understand why. The boy's lips moved, soundless, shaping a word. Who? A nurse noticed. She leaned close to the patient, then followed his gaze to the window. Her expression shifted, surprise, then wariness. She stepped outside. Who are you? Someone who wants to help. Leo's voice was soft, steady. Please, just give me 2 minutes. The nurse hesitated. He keeps asking for his mother. She passed 3 years ago. Maybe he thinks she's not who he needs right now. The nurse opened the door. Leo moved closer. The room smelled like antiseptic and something else, something faintly metallic. The machines beeped their uncertain rhythm. The boy's skin had that ashen quality. Lips still tinged that wrong blue. Leo pulled a chair close. The boy's hand reached toward him, thin and trembling. Leo took it. The fingers were cold. Who are you? The boy's voice was barely a whisper. Someone who believes you'll see the sunrise. You're not a doctor. No, I'm not. Then why are you here? Leo was quiet for a moment. He thought about his father, about the silence, about how he'd spent 5 years carrying the weight of something he couldn't change. My father died from something invisible, he said finally. Something that could have been stopped if anyone had listened. And his voice caught. I was too young, too quiet, too scared to make them hear me. I've regretted it every single day since. The boy's grip tightened. Not much, just enough to feel. What was it? Carbon monoxide. From a broken heater in our apartment. It's the same thing hurting you now. The doctors haven't said, because they're not looking for it. And I'm nobody important enough to make them look. Leo's throat tightened. But you're important to me. The boy stared at him. His eyes, pale blue and tired, searched Leo's face for something. Deception, maybe, or pity. You seem important to me too, he whispered. The door burst open. Julian Ashford stood there, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. Behind him, a woman in designer charcoal, impeccable, sharp-edged, radiating authority, paused in the doorway. Who are you? Julian's voice was bewildered, not angry. He looked like a man who'd run out of room for anger days ago. Leo stood immediately, releasing the boy's hand. I'm sorry. She's trespassing. The woman's voice cut through like ice. Security. Escort her out immediately. Wait. Julian held up a hand, looking at his son. Leo, son, do you know this person? The boy's voice was weak but certain. He knows what's wrong with me, Dad. He knows. Julian's eyes shifted to Leo. You're a doctor. No. Leo's voice barely rose above a whisper. I'm a janitor at Mercy General. But I studied environmental engineering before my father died. Your son has carbon monoxide poisoning. From your pool heater system. The woman in charcoal laughed, a cold, precise sound. This is absurd. Our facility has state-of-the-art equipment. Everything is inspected regularly. Sir. Leo turned to Julian, surprising himself with his own boldness. When was the pool heater last inspected? The woman's smile tightened. That's proprietary maintenance information. Julian's gaze sharpened. Answer him. The pool pavilion opened 2 weeks ago. Launch event. Everything was certified safe. Leo's hands trembled, but he forced the words out. Carbon monoxide poisoning looks like flu. Stress. Dehydration. But it has specific markers. Has anyone checked carboxyhemoglobin levels? Done co-oximetry. The doctor in the doorway, Dr. Nair, his badge red, spoke up. We've monitored pulse oximetry. His SpO2 has been normal. 98, 99%. That's the problem. Leo's voice gained strength. Pulse ox can't tell oxygen from carbon monoxide on hemoglobin. It reads normal even during poisoning. You need co-oximetry. Blood test. Dr. Nair's expression shifted. He's right. Standard pulse ox measures light absorption but doesn't differentiate between oxyhemoglobin and carboxyhemoglobin. The woman stepped forward. We're not reorganizing medical protocol based on theories from someone with no credentials. Someone who entered this facility without authorization. He didn't break in. Leo's voice from the bed was weak but clear. I wanted him here. Julian looked at Leo. Really looked. Saw past the worn scrubs and nervous posture. Saw something underneath. If you're wrong, Julian said slowly, you've wasted 2 hours on a blood test. And if I'm right, Leo's voice broke. If I'm right and you don't test, you lose your son. Silence stretched like a wire about to snap. Do the test, Julian said quietly. The woman's face hardened. Julian. Think about the optics. If word gets out we're taking medical advice from a janitor. Do the test. Dr. Nair left quickly. The woman, Lydia Crane, of Ashford Group, Leo would learn later, remained in the corridor, expression unreadable, calculating. Leo was escorted to a waiting area. A security guard was posted nearby, not unkind, but watchful. Leo sat with his hands folded, praying to a universe he wasn't sure listened. The minutes crawled. Leo's phone buzzed, messages from coworkers asking if he was okay. He couldn't explain. How do you tell people you've walked into a billionaire's hospital claiming to know more than their doctors? But this wasn't about pride. It was about a 14-year-old boy whose lips were turning blue. About his father who'd never gotten a second chance. About the terrible weight of knowing something and being too afraid to speak. An hour passed. Then another. Across town, Rosa Martinez locked up her tea shop when her phone rang. A friend from her old medical technician days. Rosa. You know that boy who rents the room above your shop? Leo, heart? Sweet thing. Quiet as a mouse. Why? He's at Thompson Memorial. Making waves about CO poisoning. I pulled some records as a favor. They're the maintenance log. Pool heater. 48 hours ago. Flue blockage detected. Alarm acknowledged by someone with initials LC. Rosa's blood went cold. Acknowledged and then what? Nothing. The vent went ahead. Log was buried. Send me everything. When Rosa arrived at the hospital, she found Leo in the waiting area, head in hands. She pressed a folder into his lap. Evidence, Rosa said simply. Someone knew. And did nothing. Leo opened it with shaking hands. Maintenance alert. CO exhaust blockage detected. Pool pavilion heater unit. Risk level high. Acknowledged by L. Crane. Oh. Action taken none. Event prioritized. Repair scheduled post-launch. The words blurred. Someone had known. 48 hours ago. Someone had chosen a party over a child's life. Leo stood, folder clutched to his chest. The security guard, Jamal Harris, had been watching. He'd seen Leo's tears, his determination, his desperate text explaining the situation. "You want to get that to the CEO?" Jamal asked quietly. Leo nodded. "Then let's go." They made it halfway down the corridor before hospital administration stopped them. "Mr. Hart, you need to leave immediately. You're not authorized in this facility." "He has evidence." Jamal's voice was firm. "Of what?" "Someone from County General playing detective in our hospital." The administrator's voice dripped condescension. "Mr. Ashford has real doctors. He doesn't need theories from staff who don't even work here. From someone like me." Leo's voice was barely a whisper, but something in it made everyone stop. "Someone who cleans floors at Mercy General. Who you don't see unless we miss a spot." His hand shook, but he held the folder higher. "My father died because people like you didn't listen to people like me. I won't let that happen again." He drew a shaky breath. "You can throw me out. Ban me from every hospital in the city. But Leo Ashford is being poisoned by carbon monoxide. And someone in your organization knew and did nothing." The administrator reached for her phone. "Security. Stop." Julian Ashford stepped out of a nearby doorway. He'd heard everything. "Give me that folder." Julian read the maintenance log once. Twice. His face drained of color. "You knew." He turned to Lydia, who'd followed him into the corridor. "You knew there was a carbon monoxide risk. And you did nothing." Lydia's composure cracked. "The event was critical for investors. The repair was scheduled. I made a calculated risk assessment. You risked my son's life for a party. I didn't think. The heater only ran at night, when temperatures dropped. I assumed limited exposure. You assumed my son was an acceptable loss for a photo opportunity." Leo spoke up, voice steadier now. "The pool pavilion connects to the main house through the ventilation system. When you ran the heater after launch to keep the area warm, you pumped poison directly into his bedroom. Every night he slept, the levels built up. That's why symptoms peaked after sunset." Dr. Nair added, anger rising. "Which explains why he'd improve slightly during the day and get worse overnight. He was being re-poisoned every single night while you protected your corporate image." Julian looked at Leo with something like awe, mixed with shame. "How did you know? How did someone—" He stopped, hearing his own words. "Someone like me sees what people like you don't." Leo said it without bitterness. "I clean hospitals. I see broken equipment unreported because maintenance costs money. I see shortcuts and ignored alarms. I lost my father because adults told a 21-year-old he was overreacting. He said the generator smelled wrong." His voice broke. "I won't be that silent person again. Not when I know. Not when I can help. This isn't about me being inspirational. It's about a boy who deserves to live." Julian pulled out his phone. "Dr. Nair, how long until the blood test results?" "Should be back within 20 minutes. Coaximetry is fast. Call me the second they arrive." Julian turned to Leo. "You're not leaving this hospital. Jamal, make sure he has whatever he needs." Lydia's face went rigid. "Julian, this is a mistake. If the test comes back negative, the liability. If the test comes back negative, I'll apologize publicly and personally." Julian's voice was hard. "But if it's positive, and we've wasted even one more hour because I cared more about reputation than truth, I'll never forgive myself." In that moment, something shifted. This wasn't just about Leo anymore. It was about whether power could learn to listen. Whether a quiet boy's voice could matter as much as a CEO's decision. Leo waited. Rosa beside him, holding his hand. Two people who'd been overlooked their entire lives, hoping that once, just once, being right would be enough. 20 minutes felt like 20 hours. The results arrived exactly 18 minutes later. Dr. Nair's face was pale as he entered Julian's private waiting room. Julian sat with Lydia, the hospital administrator, and Leo, whom Julian had insisted stay. "Carboxyhemoglobin level is 32%. Dr. Nair's voice shook. "Normal is less than 2%. Anything above 25 is severe poisoning. It's honestly a miracle Leo is still conscious. The room went silent. Julian's voice came out strangled. She was right. Carbon monoxide. Yes. Dr. Nair nodded. His pulse ox was reading normal because CO binds to hemoglobin even more readily than oxygen. The device was essentially lying to us the entire time. Leo closed his eyes. Relief and grief washing through him. Right. But too late for his father. Maybe not too late for this boy. Rosa squeezed his hand. Julian turned to him. What do we do? Tell me exactly what Leo needs. High-flow oxygen. 100%. Non-rebreather mask. 15 liters per minute. Leo's voice was steady now. And he needs hyperbaric oxygen therapy as soon as possible. It's the only way to force CO off the hemoglobin fast enough to save his organs. Dr. Nair nodded quickly. We can start oxygen immediately. The hyperbaric chamber at the medical center next door is already prepped. They keep it on standby for emergencies. We can have him there in under 10 minutes. Then move. Now. But before anyone could leave, Leo's monitor erupted in alarms. From the adjacent room, through the window, his small body arched against restraints, convulsing. Everyone ran. Julian reached the room first. Leo right behind. He's crashing, a nurse shouted. Befip. Heart's going into arrhythmia. A doctor grabbed the defibrillator paddles. Charging to 200. Wait. Look at the monitor. Leo pushed forward, every instinct screaming. His pulse ox still says 99%, doesn't it? Dr. Nair glanced at the screen, confused. Yes. But he's clearly in cardiac distress. It's still lying. Leo's voice cut through the chaos. The CO is making his cells think they have oxygen when they're starving. His heart is shutting down from lack of real oxygen. You need 100% oxygen. High flow. Right now. Switch to that immediately. The hyperbaric chamber next door is already prepped. Get him there in the next few minutes, or his brain won't survive this. Dr. Nair made a split-second decision. Trusting this quiet janitor, who'd been right about everything else. Get him on non-rebreather at 15 liters. Call the medical center. Severe CO poisoning. Patient incoming for immediate hyperbaric treatment. Move. Now. The room exploded into controlled chaos. Leo was intubated. Bagged with pure oxygen. Loaded onto transport. His color began improving within seconds, the pure oxygen finally reaching his starved tissues. Julian climbed into the ambulance with him. Before doors closed, he looked at Leo, tears streaming down his face. Come with us. Please. Leo shook his head. He needs you. Not me. He needs both of us. You save his life. Don't leave now. In the ambulance, as Leo fought for each breath with the oxygen mask pressed to his face, Julian held his son's hand and looked across at the slight young man who'd saved his child. I looked at your shoes instead of your eyes, Julian said quietly. Voice raw. I heard your title instead of your words. I dismissed you because of where you work. How you look. What you do. He swallowed hard. I owe you an apology. And the world owes you its ears. Leo's tears fell freely. Just let him see sunrise. That's all I want. That's all that matters. At the medical center, Leo was rushed into the hyperbaric chamber. The treatment would take hours. Pressurized oxygen forcing CO off his hemoglobin molecule by molecule, giving starved organs a chance to heal. Julian stood outside the chamber with Leo, watching his son through the small window. Leo's color was better already, breathing more stable. But the danger hadn't passed. Why did you try so hard? Julian asked, genuinely trying to understand. You didn't know us. You had nothing to gain. You risked your job, your credibility, everything. Leo was quiet for a long moment. Watching Leo breathe. My father's name was Michael. His voice was soft. He was a carpenter, good with his hands, funny in a quiet way. He died because I was too young and too quiet to make anyone listen when I said something was wrong. He wiped his eyes. I'm older now. Still quiet. But I'm not too anything to try anymore. I'm not too small. Not too unimportant. Not too anything when a life is at stake. Julian's phone buzzed. A text from his lawyer. Lydia Crane removed from all positions effective immediately. Board recommends full investigation and OSHA involvement. He showed Leo the screen. This is just the beginning. OSHA will investigate. If maintenance protocols were violated, there will be consequences. Criminal charges, possibly. That won't bring back the time Leo lost, Leo said softly, or the fear he felt. But it might save the next child. Julian nodded, then said something that surprised even himself. I've spent my whole life believing power came from money, connections, the ability to control outcomes. But you, his voice caught. You had none of that. Just knowledge, courage, refusal to be silent. That's real power. And I was too blind to see it until almost too late. Over the next 3 days, Leo underwent multiple hyperbaric sessions. Leo stayed. He'd requested emergency leave from Mercy General. His supervisor, Margaret, had surprisingly said, "Go. If you save that boy's life, you're exactly the kind of person we need on staff. Take all the time you need." On the 3rd day, Leo opened his eyes in a regular hospital room. The treatments were complete. Color had returned to his cheeks. Confusion had lifted. He was weak, but gloriously, miraculously alive. "Hey," he whispered, seeing Leo in the chair beside his bed. "Hey yourself. Did I miss the sunrise?" Leo smiled through tears, voice soft but filled with joy. "Every single one. But there's always tomorrow. And the day after. And hundreds more after that. You'll see so many sunrises you'll lose count." Julian entered, carrying coffee, looking more human than he had in days. Actually sleeping for the first time since this nightmare began. The haunted look had left his eyes, replaced by something lighter. Gratitude. Hope. Doctor says another week of monitoring, then home. Full recovery expected. No permanent damage to any organs. He set a cup before Leo. "I didn't know how you take it. Black's fine. Thank you." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. The kind that exists between people who've been through something profound together. Leo dozed lightly, peaceful for the first time in weeks. The monitors beeped their steady, reassuring rhythm. Normal. Truly normal. Then Julian spoke. "I've been thinking about systems," he said. "About who we listen to and why. About how many other Leos are out there. Seeing dangers we miss because we're too arrogant to listen. Too caught up in credentials and status to hear the truth." He pulled out a tablet, fingers scrolling through documents he'd clearly spent hours preparing. Ashford Group is establishing a public safety fund. $1 million initially. Free environmental and safety inspections for low-income housing, schools, community centers. Anywhere vulnerable people live and work. 1,000 buildings in the first year. More after that. Leo's eyes widened. That's incredible. This could save so many lives. It's not enough. It'll never be enough to undo the damage caused by people prioritizing profit over safety. But it's a start. Julian paused. For the first time, his usual CEO confidence was replaced by genuine uncertainty. "And I'd like you to run it. Direct it. Make the decisions about where it goes and how it's used. Build the team. Set the priorities. All of it." Leo nearly dropped his coffee. "What? No. I don't have a degree. I'm a janitor who dropped out of college because I couldn't afford it after my father died and I fell apart. I'm not qualified to run something like this. You're more qualified than anyone with a dozen degrees." Julian's voice was firm. "You see what others miss. You care when it's inconvenient. You speak up when it's terrifying. Those aren't things you can learn in a classroom. You either have them or you don't. And you have them. He leaned forward, earnest. You're an environmental engineer who had to stop school because life got hard. Because the system failed you after your father died and you had no support. I'm offering you a salary that will let you live comfortably. Full benefits, health insurance, retirement, and funding to finish your degree while you work. However long it takes. No pressure. You can say no. Leo reached for Leo's hand. His grip was stronger now. More certain. Please say yes. I want to help too when I'm better. We could visit buildings together. Check on kids. Make sure they're safe like you wanted to keep me safe. We could be a team. Leo looked between them. This powerful man who'd learned humility, and his gentle son who'd learned about courage from the least likely teacher, and felt something shift inside him. Not just validation. Something deeper. More permanent. Purpose. A chance to turn his greatest loss into protection for others. To make his father's death mean something beyond grief. Okay. Yes. But on one condition. Name it. Anything. Rosa Martinez. The woman who brought me that evidence when I was at my lowest point. She used to be a medical technician. She's been working retail for 10 years because her credentials expired and she couldn't afford recertification. Hire her as a consultant. She sees things too. Notices details others miss. She's been invisible as long as I have. Julian nodded immediately, already making notes. Done. I'll call her today. Jamal. The security guard who helped me when he didn't have to. He broke protocol because he believed me. Because he chose what was right over what was safe for his job. People like that, who choose right over rules when it matters, they're rare. We need people like that. I'll talk to him today. He'll have a position if he wants it. News of Lydia's cover-up broke nationally within hours. OSHA launched a full investigation. The maintenance contractor was fined heavily and lost their license. New protocols were established for reporting safety violations. Congressional hearings were scheduled. Lydia faced criminal charges for reckless endangerment. But beyond the headlines and legal proceedings, something quieter happened. Something that mattered more. In break rooms and waiting areas across the city, cleaning staff and orderlies, and the people who made hospitals run began speaking up about the small dangers they noticed. Frayed wires. Leaking pipes. Alarms disabled to stop annoying beeping. Ventilation systems that smelled wrong. Gas connections that looked loose. And more importantly, critically, people started listening. Really listening. Managers held meetings with janitorial staff. Administrators asked for safety reports from everyone, not just supervisors. The invisible became visible. Other companies announced similar safety funds. Medical schools began teaching students to value input from all staff, regardless of position. The Leo protocol became shorthand for listening to frontline workers. Leo spent his days visiting buildings, running inspections, finding silent killers before they could kill, cracked heat exchangers, backdrafting furnaces, blocked vents, faulty carbon monoxide detectors that had never worked. Each one a potential tragedy prevented. Each one another family that wouldn't know his grief. And every time he saved a life, he whispered his father's name. Prayer. Promise. A memorial more lasting than any stone. 6 months later, as spring touched the city with gentle hands, Leo was released with a perfect bill of health. The morning of his discharge, Leo arrived at dawn with hot chocolate and a plan. Come on, he said, grinning. We have a promise to keep. They went to the hospital's roof access. Julian joining them, and stood at the railing as the sky shifted from black to navy to violet to gold. Leo had never been awake for this. In his old life of late nights and later mornings, sunrise was something he slept through, something he took for granted. But now as light spilled over the horizon, painting clouds in shades of hope and promise. He understood what his mother must have felt watching him sleep. That quiet gratitude for another day. Another chance. "See," Leo whispered. "A real sunrise." Leo smiled, eyes bright with tears and joy. "Yeah, finally. It's beautiful. Michael would have loved this. He would have." Leo agreed softly. He really would have. Julian stood behind him, resting a hand on Leo's shoulder. "From now on, we listen. Even to the smallest voices. Especially to them. Because they often see what we miss." Leo bowed his head. "I'm not special. I just notice what others overlook. Anyone could do what I did. They just have to care enough to try. That's exactly what makes you special." Julian's voice was thick with emotion. "Caring when it's hard. Speaking when it's scary. That's everything." Later, the Safety Fund office opened its doors. A small space, bright with windows and possibility, and the energy of new beginnings. Rosa wore her consultant badge with visible pride. Jamal had joined as community outreach coordinator. A handful of engineers and inspectors, people Leo had carefully chosen for their empathy as much as their expertise, filled the desks. On the wall, a photo. Michael Hart at 52, grinning at the camera. Sunrise behind him, full of dreams that never got to happen. Underneath, words Leo had written in careful script. "Listen to the quiet voices. They might save your life." That evening, as Leo walked home through streets that felt less lonely now, more filled with purpose and connection, his phone buzzed. A message from Leo. "Thank you for teaching me to see sunrises. And for seeing me when I needed it most. You're my hero." He replied simply, "Thank you for squeezing my hand when I needed to be seen too. You saved me just as much." In the end, this wasn't a story about a billionaire or a medical miracle. It was about something more fragile and more powerful and more a moment of connection. A decision to listen. A quiet voice that refused to stay silent when silence meant death. And a sunrise that proved dark nights always end. Julian found Leo in the office one evening, long after everyone else had gone home. Leo was staring at his father's photograph, shoulders trembling. Julian didn't say anything. Just crossed the room and wrapped his arms around him from behind. Pulled him close against his chest. "You're not invisible," Julian murmured against his hair. "Not to me. Not anymore." Leo turned in his arms. Looked up at this man who'd once been a stranger, who'd become something far more important. Their eyes met. Something unspoken passed between them. "Thank you," Leo whispered. "For listening." "Thank you," Julian replied, "for speaking." And in the quiet of the empty office, with the city lights glittering beyond the window and Michael Hart's photograph watching over them, Leo Hart finally felt like he belonged somewhere. Like he mattered. Like his voice, small and quiet and easily overlooked, could change the world. Because it already had. Heroes don't always wear capes or have degrees. Sometimes they wear worn shoes and cleaning gloves. Sometimes they're the ones we walk past every day without seeing. But if we're lucky, if we're wise, we stop. We look. We listen. And we find that the quietest voices often have the loudest truths to tell. Extra story? The first time Julian Ashford kissed Leo Hart, it was raining. Not the gentle spring rain that had accompanied Leo's recovery, but a proper autumn downpour, the kind that turned streets into rivers and made the city feel like it was drowning. They were standing in the doorway of the new Safety Fund office, watching the water cascade off the awning in sheets, and Julian had just finished telling Leo about the latest inspection report. 37 buildings cleared. 12 more scheduled for next week. 3 families relocated to temporary housing while their furnaces were replaced. "Good work," Julian said. His voice was quiet, meant only for Leo. "You're changing lives." Leo shrugged, that familiar gesture of deflection. "Just doing my job. That's not what I meant." Leo looked up at him. Rainlight softened Julian's features, made him look younger than his 42 years. Less like the CEO who'd built an empire, more like the man who'd sat beside his son's hospital bed for 3 days without sleeping. What did you mean? Leo asked. Julian didn't answer with words. He stepped closer, one hand coming up to cup Leo's jaw, gentle, hesitant, like he was asking permission. Leo's breath caught. His eyes widened, but he didn't pull away. He couldn't have if he'd wanted to. Something in Julian's expression had rooted him to the spot. And then Julian kissed him. It was soft at first, questioning. Julian's lips brushed against Leo's like he was testing whether this was real, whether Leo would let him, whether the world would collapse if he did. Leo made a small sound against his mouth, not a protest, not quite surprise, something in between. Julian pulled back just far enough to look at him. Tell me to stop. Leo shook his head, mute. Tell me you don't want this. Leo's voice cracked. I don't know what I want. I've never what? Leo's cheeks flushed. Never done this. With anyone. Like this. Something shifted in Julian's expression. Not pity, Leo would have hated that, but something softer. Protective. We don't have to do anything, Julian said. We can just... No. Leo's voice was firmer now. He reached out, fingers curling into the fabric of Julian's expensive coat. I want this. I don't know how. Then let me show you. The second time Julian kissed him, it was in the office after everyone else had gone home. Leo had been reviewing inspection reports, his reading glasses perched on his nose, when Julian appeared in the doorway. He'd been working late too. Something about a board meeting, a merger, the kind of corporate politics Leo still didn't fully understand. You're still here, Julian said. So are you. I wanted to see you. The words hung between them. Simple. Honest. Julian had a way of saying things like that, stripping away pretense until all that remained was the truth. Leo had never met anyone like him. Anyone who looked at him, really looked, and didn't flinch at what they saw. Julian crossed the room, his footsteps muffled by the industrial carpet. He knelt beside Leo's chair, one hand resting on Leo's knee. Can I? Leo nodded, throat tight. This kiss was different. Slower. Deeper. Julian's hand slid up Leo's thigh, not demanding, just present. Leo leaned into him, fingers threading through Julian's hair, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, he felt safe. Tell me what you want, Julian murmured against his lips. You. Tell me specifically. Leo's face burned. I don't know how. Julian pulled back, his expression impossibly tender. Then let me take care of you. Will you let me? Leo nodded again, unable to speak. Julian stood, offering his hand. Leo took it, letting himself be pulled to his feet. Julian guided him to the small couch against the wall, the one Rosa had insisted on. For meetings, she'd said, though Leo suspected she'd known exactly what it would be used for. They sank down together, Julian's arms wrapping around him, pulling him close. Leo's heart hammered against his ribs. He could feel Julian's warmth through his thin sweater, the steady thrum of his pulse. Just relax, Julian whispered. I've got you. It happened in stages. First, the careful removal of Leo's sweater. Julian's hands were steady, patient, like he was unwrapping something precious. Leo's breath came in shallow gasps as the fabric slid over his head, leaving him in nothing but his undershirt. You're beautiful, Julian said. Leo laughed, a broken, self-conscious sound. I'm a janitor who hasn't slept properly in 5 years. You're the man who saved my son's life. You're brave. You're kind. And you've been alone too long. Leo's eyes stung. Julian. I'm not done. Julian pressed a kiss to his collarbone, featherlight. You deserve to be seen. To be wanted. To be loved. The words slipped out before Leo could stop it. Julian looked up, meeting his eyes. Yes. 3 simple letters. Leo felt them land somewhere deep in his chest, settling into a space he kept closed off for so long he'd forgotten it existed. Say it again, he whispered. I love you. Julian's voice was steady. Certain. I don't expect you to say it back. I know it's too soon, but I need you to know. I need you to understand that this, he gestured between them, isn't casual for me. You're not a distraction. You're not a rebound. You're everything. Leo broke. He wasn't sure when the tears started, only that suddenly they were there, spilling down his cheeks. Julian caught them with his thumbs, wiping them away with infinite gentleness. Hey, Julian said softly. What is it? I don't know how to do this. Leo's voice was raw, stripped bare. I don't know how to let someone care about me. Everyone who's ever loved me has died. My mother. My father. I keep thinking if I let myself have this, if I let myself have you, something will go wrong. You'll get hurt. Leo will get hurt. Because of me. Julian pulled him closer, wrapping both arms around him. That's not how it works. It feels like it. I know. But it's not true. Julian's lips brushed his ear. I'm not going anywhere. Neither is Leo. You're stuck with us now. Leo laughed through his tears. That's not a threat. It's a promise. They undressed each other slowly, with reverence. Julian's hands mapped Leo's body like he was memorizing it. Every scar, every freckle, every place where Leo's skin was soft or rough or warm to the touch. Leo learned Julian in return. The broadness of his shoulders, the way his breathing hitched when Leo's fingers traced the line of his jaw. Leo was trembling by the time they were both bare, exposed in the dim light of the office. He'd never felt more vulnerable, more seen. Julian must have noticed. He paused, forehead resting against Leo's. We can stop. No, Leo? I've been stopping my whole life. Leo's voice was fierce despite the tears still clinging to his lashes. I stopped myself from speaking when I should have screamed. I stopped myself from feeling because feeling hurt too much. I stopped myself from hoping because hoping meant disappointment. I'm tired of stopping. I want this. I want you. Julian kissed him, deep and claiming. Then have me. What followed was slow and tender, a conversation spoken in touches and gasps. Julian learned the places that made Leo arch into him. The hollow of his throat, the dip of his spine, the sensitive skin behind his ears. Leo discovered that Julian was just as responsive, just as desperate, just as hungry for connection after years of loneliness. When Leo finally let go, when the tension that had been coiled in his chest for 5 years finally released, he cried again. Not from sadness, from relief, from the overwhelming knowledge that someone had seen all of him, every broken piece, and stayed. Julian held him through it, murmuring quiet reassurances, pressing kisses to his damp cheeks. I've got you, he kept saying. I've got you. And Leo, for the first time in forever, believed him. They lay tangled together on the small couch, Leo's head pillowed on Julian's chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heart. I should get dressed, Leo murmured eventually. Someone might come in. It's midnight. No one's coming. You don't know that. I know I don't care. Julian's hand traced lazy patterns on Leo's back. Let them see. Let everyone see. I want the world to know you're mine. Leo's heart stuttered. I'm yours. If you want to be. Yes. The word came out before Leo could second-guess it. I want to be. Julian shifted, tilting Leo's chin up so he could look into his eyes. Say it again. I'm yours. Say it like you mean it. Leo laughed, a real laugh, the kind that came from somewhere deep. I'm yours, Yulian. I've been yours since the moment you believed me in that hospital corridor. Julian kissed him, soft and sweet. Good. Because I've been yours since you walked into my son's ICU and refused to leave. They fell asleep like that, naked and tangled, the rain still drumming against the windows. Leo woke first, disoriented, the light of early dawn filtering through the blinds. For a moment, he didn't remember where he was. Then he felt the warmth of Julian's body against his, the steady rise and fall of his chest, and everything came rushing back. He turned his head, watching Julian sleep. In repose, the hard edges of him softened. He looked younger, more vulnerable, Less like the man who'd built an empire, and more like the man who'd held Leo through the worst night of his life. Leo reached out, fingertips brushing Julian's cheek. Julian stirred, eyes fluttering open. "What time is it?" "Early. Go back to sleep. Come here." Julian pulled him closer, wrapping both arms around him. "You're too far away. I'm literally right here. Not close enough." Leo smiled, pressing his face into Julian's neck. "You're impossible. You love me." Leo's breath caught. The words were casual, teasing, but they landed like a blow. He pulled back just enough to meet Julian's eyes. "Yes," he said softly. "I do." Julian's expression shifted, surprise, then joy, then something so tender it made Leo's chest ache. "Say it again." "I love you." Leo's voice was steadier now. "I didn't think I could. I didn't think I deserved to. But I do. I love you, Julian." Julian kissed him deep and thorough, until Leo was breathless. "We should do this more often," Julian murmured against his lips. "Sleep in an office on a couch that's way too small. Be together. No walls. No pretending. Just us." Leo nodded, eyes stinging with happy tears for the first time in years. "I'd like that." They dressed in comfortable silence, stealing glances and touches. Julian helped Leo button his shirt, a small intimacy that felt monumental. Leo returned a favor, adjusting Julian's collar, smoothing the fabric over his shoulders. "Rosa's going to know," Leo said. "She's going to take one look at us and—" "Good. I want her to know." "Julian, I want everyone to know. I don't care what they think. I care about you." Julian cupped his face, thumbs tracing his cheekbones. "You're not a secret. You're not something I'm ashamed of. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you know it." Leo kissed him, quick, fierce, full of all the words he couldn't say. "Come on," Julian said, taking his hand. "Let's get breakfast. I know a place that does the best pancakes in the city. You're taking me on a date? I'm taking you on the first of many dates. Is that okay?" Leo smiled, bright and real. "That's perfect." They left the office hand in hand, stepping into the rain-washed morning. The city was just waking up, streets still slick with water, the sky a pale, hopeful blue. Leo looked up at the sky, then at Julian, and felt something he hadn't felt in years, peace. "I love you," he said, testing the words. Julian squeezed his hand. "I know." "How do you know?" "Because you told me." Julian smiled. "And because I'm going to spend every day making sure you remember." 6 months later, they stood on the hospital rooftop again. This time, the sunrise was different. Not a marker of survival, but of beginning. Leo was between them, holding both their hands, his face lifted to the light. "It's beautiful," he said. Every time, Julian agreed. Leo looked at Julian, then at the boy who'd become his family. "Thank you." "For what?" Julian asked. "For believing me. For trusting me. For—" Leo gestured vaguely. "Everything." Julian pulled him close, pressing a kiss to his temple. "Thank you for speaking. For refusing to be silent. For giving me my son back. And for giving me you," Leo added softly, only for Julian's ears. Julian smiled, warm and real. "And for giving me you." Then,